Geek to me radio, da 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 da. Geek to me radio, da 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 da.
Welcome, geeks and nerds, girls and boys, to an all-new edition of Geek to Me Radio. Tonight we are talking with Larry Quiggins, the owner of Bugs Comics. That's right, Bugs Comics is back. We'll talk to him about reopening the store. We'll talk about comic trends, all that and more. Stand by.
We're talking TV, comics and movies, and video games. And if you don't know Star Trek from Star Wars, we'll try to explain. There are 12 doctors for Hogwarts houses, one ring rules them all. To be the greatest Pokemon master, you must catch them all. You must catch them all. Try to catch them all. Gotta catch them all. Gotta catch them all.
And if you're driving around the greater St. Louis area tonight, hearing us on the Big 550 KTRS, thank you very much for tuning in. If you're streaming us out there in the world on ktrs.com/stream, we appreciate your finding us there. And, of course, if you're hearing us after the fact in the podcast form, wherever you get your podcasts from, we appreciate your subscribing there. Hopefully you've hit that subscribe button. And if you could, leave us a 5-star review. That always helps us in search engine optimization and for other people to find us as well. I want to mention real quick before we start the show, St. Clair, Illinois, the National Weather Service has issued a severe a tornado warning for the St. Clair, Illinois area going until 9:45 tonight. So if you're in the St. Clair, Illinois area, do be careful. The National Weather Service has issued that tornado warning for your area. We have a guest in studio. This was the man mostly responsible for my comic book addiction that I had growing up. He had a store on West Florissant, moved a couple of times, but it's very exciting to me to know that Bugs Comics is back. We have the owner of Bugs Comics right now, Larry Quiggins. Larry, how are you?
I'm doing great. How about you, Jim?
Doing well. I appreciate the time today. Thanks for coming in and being in the studio. This is kind of cool to be able to talk about comic books and to have Bugs Comics back. So talk a little bit about, obviously you owned a store for quite a while. I want to say you opened it in 1990 originally?
Yes, 1990, opened up there on West Florissant, like you said, in Florissant, Missouri. At the time, there were no comic stores in North County at all. I mean, there was really nothing. There was a couple of bookstores that carried comics, and so everybody was down south, and I lived up north, and I thought, hey. So opened up the store, and one of those weird things in business, made a profit the first year, just started and kicked right off. Just to show me how hungry the North County people were to have a comic store.
Yeah.
And then without getting too long into it, I got bored about 6 or so years later. I went back to school and got my MFA, and then around 2000, I started teaching theater, even though I'd never really strayed too far away from comics because I created the course History of Sequential Art and World of Comics for university classes. So I've always been into the comics still, even though while I was teaching. 20 years later, semi-retired. It's like, what am I going to do? I think I'm going to reopen a store. I mean,
why not?
Exactly.
And it's still, especially with, because, obviously, because I'll run into you at different comic book stores and different toy shows. You've obviously never given up the hobby aspect of it.
Oh, no.
And so you know as well as anyone else how it's bigger business now than it ever was with all the comic book movies and everything. It's part of the zeitgeist. So O'Fallon, I think, is the same reason you decided to open out there, because it's an underserved area again?
It is a very underserved area. I am the closest. If you're out west, the store is going to be the closest to you. So if you're anywhere from O'Fallon, out Wentzville, Warrenton, blah, 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 the store is going to be the closest to you. You don't have to drive all into St. Charles or even across the river to get your comics. So, and I live out here. I've been living out here for a long time, so it makes it simple.
Yeah.
And finding the right area, again.
Location,
I don't know if you're familiar with the area. I'm there on Bryan Road in Feisey, right by 364, the interchange of 360, from like 3 to 5 minutes from 70 in Bryan Road, so you can get to me in so many different ways. Real nice area, a lot of suburbs and blah, 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 And that's kind of, you remember the original store, it was in a suburbia area.
Yeah.
And to me, that's where, I know a lot of comic stores are in city-type scapes, but I always felt the suburbs was better to be at because that way the kids can get to you easily. And, of course, I'm still a big proponent that the kids need to be reading comics. Otherwise,
absolutely,
nobody's going to be reading comics years from now.
Right. Yeah. And again, that's how I started out. I remember I had a job. You were on West Florissant right between Newhall's Ferry and 270. And I worked across the street at that restaurant, Rosemary's Restaurant over there.
Yeah.
And so my mom often jokes, she goes, I take him, I drop him off at work, and I bring him right over here, and he spends his paycheck with Larry. But it was a perfect arrangement. I didn't have to go too far. But I remember I was talking to, you remember Gary Capps, my friend, tall guy?
Yeah.
We were talking about him. I said, boy, we used to get on our bikes, because this was before we had our driver's license, and in the dead of winter, we'd ride our bikes from over by Hazelwood Central all the way up West Florissant. To go up there to the comic book store. It's one of my favorite memories as a teenager.
And I know what you mean, because when I was younger, I used to walk far, far away. In my time when I was younger, I had to walk to a Magic Market, that was just so far away because I knew that they had the comic books. So we would make the trek. And we're talking good 30 to 40 minute walk to get there. Didn't matter what the weather was. We knew there were comics there.
Yeah.
and you did it.
Yeah. Yeah, one of those things. And I know it's often funny, too, because you see a lot of stuff online. Even Marvel and DC are doing digital comics and things like that. But
yes.
I love one of my favorite Stan Lee quotes. He said, someone asked him, they said, Stan Lee, do you think that online comics will ever replace the actual print? And he said, this is his quote, comics are like boobs. They look great online, but you want to hold them in your hand.
That's right. You like the feel of them in your hands.
Right.
That's right.
But that's, I think, opening a brick-and-mortar store, because a lot of places, there's digital,
Yes.
there's big box chains. So in the current climate environment, was there any hesitation like, is this something I should really be doing?
Oh, yes. Obviously, with the current climate and where things are and such like that, not many people are opening up a new business, especially after the last year and a half and everything.
Yeah.
With COVID and such, most businesses got shut down or hurt because you couldn't have the clientele. And actually, the weird thing about all that was the comic industry thrived with online sales because people were stuck in the house and they wanted the entertainment and they went to comic books and that medium. It's awesome.
Yeah.
But trying to find the place, like I said, the right area and such like that is very important for the brick and mortar store. And I got a partner, and he's my cyber person. So he takes care of everything online, and the online store is already actually going. You can go online and actually get in there and start ordering stuff and stuff like, and everything. He takes care of all that, and I'm taking care of all the on-ground. And, of course, the expertise.
Right, yeah. Knowing what you're doing is...
of the medium and stuff like that. And I guess I should mention my partner is Tim Spakowski. And the ironic thing about that is that when I opened up the store 30 years ago, he was the 18-year-old kid who came to work for me.
Yeah, I remember him behind the register.
And now we're partners. And he actually is the one who kind of reached out to me last year saying, hey, let's do this. And I was saying, well, I don't know. There's a lot to go into it.
Right.
But bottom line is, as I told him a few months back, it's like inventory is important. What are we going to have inventory? You can't just have new comics.
Yeah.
And, back in the day of the store, I always was very big on old comic
Lots
books.
of back issues.
Back issues. And back in the 90s, when I would go to the seminars and the country seminars with Diamond and Capital Comics and stuff and meet other retailers across the country, I was the odd man. Most people didn't, 50% of my business was back issues back then.
Yeah.
Maybe 10% for the rest of the dealers. But I doted so much, I think, on the old stuff. And I hate saying it, I actually read the old stuff, and some of them didn't. I was so much in love with it that I think that's part of the reason why, and I still got that love affair with it.
Yeah, because that's one of the things when I started, it was, like I said, with you, I started, it was right in the 90s when I was really getting into the collecting and everything like that. And that was when the boom was happening. Valiant Comics was coming out, and Image Comics came not too long thereafter. But you were the person, more specifically, who said, hey, have you read some of this older stuff, kid? Because I was buying the stuff off the rack. And that's why, to this day, the Avengers run, when it's just Cap, Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, and Hawkeye, is one of my favorite Avengers runs, because you were like, here, read this one. And you sold me one of the earlier books as like issue 22 or something. And I just went back and kind of got some from there. But yeah, I remember that distinctly.
And that's part of what I feel my strength is with the store. When a customer comes in and they say that they like reading this comic or like this character, my knowledge of and having read all the stuff to say, well, have you read this before? If you like this, you want to try this, and turn them on to new things that they might not ever hear about, if they're just looking, if they're just online listening to what's hot. Because a lot of time online, that's all they talk about. This is what's hot. This is what's hot.
Yeah, and back in, when you had your last store, Twitter wasn't a thing, Instagram wasn't a thing, and if someone wants to know about the new stuff, that's where they can go to learn. Obviously, it's kind of, there are accounts dedicated to the Kirby era and things like that, but most times you go into stores, people are going in there because they want to pick up the new issue of Superman because now he's come out as bisexual. They want to pick up the new issue of this with this hot new artist. Oh my gosh, Stegman's doing the Hulk now. Let's get that first issue of that. So I think people are up on the trends, but it's the older stuff that people, I think, lack an appreciation for online, especially.
And coming into the store, it is good for, like you made the comment about Superman, so I can make sure that they understand that it's not the Superman that they know who's bisexual. It's actually his and Lois's son.
Right, Jonathan Kent.
Who's become bisexual. He's got a new series out where he's an adult and he's the new Superman and such like that.
Which I haven't read a DC comic for, I'd say it's been at least 5 or 6 months since I picked up any new comics.
Really?
So I wasn't even aware that Kal-El was no longer Superman. I was like, oh, I didn't see that.
Well, he still is in the regular universe. It's one of those
parallel.
It's kind of a parallel Elseworlds type of thing to where it's set in the future.
Is it from that whole future state thing?
Something, yes.
Because I know
I think
that's
it
where
is
I
connected.
stopped
It is
reading
connected to the future state.
Okay.
It's funny is 5 or 6 months. One of my favorite comics is that I'm reading is a DC comic, and I know that a lot of people who know me might be taken aback by it when make that comment. But the new Robin comic book is just incredible. It's awesome.
Yes, it's Damian Wayne.
Yes, and I love Damian. Of course, Dick Grayson is always the original Robin has always been one of my favorite characters anyway. But I love Damian, and I remember the 3-part graphic novel hardcover series that came out in the late 70s, early 80s. Son of the Demon, Bride of the Demon, Birth of the Demon, where him and Talia, Ra's al Ghul's daughter, Batman and her got married for a brief time. And it ended off, the storyline ended off where they didn't tell Batman, but she was pregnant. And then that just kind of got lost and forgotten about all this because, again, that was kind of an Elseworlds. And the fact that they brought that into the actual continuity and Damian was now there and...
That was another Grant Morrison one, wasn't it?
Yes, Grant Morrison. I have to give him kudos on that for dipping into that and pulling that out.
And same thing he did with the Batman, the Zur-En-El storyline, where Batman lost his mind for a while, the R.I.P. story. That was another brilliant Batman story from Grant Morrison. So kudos to him for several reasons. His run on JLA was one of my favorites.
Oh, yeah. And that's when we learned he knew how to write Batman, too.
Yeah,
was that run on JLA?
Yeah, because that was if someone asked me what my favorite Batman story is, I always tell them it's that JLA Tower of Babel story because that shows just how ruthless Batman is.
Yes,
it's really good. There's so many people to talk. And again, if you're listening right now and you're wondering what's going on, we're talking Larry Quiggins because he just reopened Bugs Comics. Before we delve too much more into this, tell people about the website, when the store is opening, and things like that. Tell people where they can find it.
Sure, you can find us online at www.bugscomicsandgames.com. The Avengers Club is back, which is our discount pull and hold subscription service club. We are opening this coming up weekend, October 29th to the 31st is our grand opening weekend, and then which the hours will be 11 to 7 on Friday and Saturday and 12 to 6 on Saturday. We'll have a little Halloween thing going on, the 31st.
Yeah.
I'm going to have Spider-Man there.
Oh, nice.
I don't know if you remember. I used to do the Spider-Man appearances.
I do.
A little past that now, but I still have the costume from Marvel Comics that I had before.
That's awesome.
Won't say who will be in it.
Okay.
But it won't be me.
You'll be able to see Larry and Spider-Man, so you'll know it's not the same guy this time around.
That's right. That's right.
Well, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come right back and talk more with Larry Quiggins about Bugs Comics. We're going to talk all things comics. If you have a question or something you'd like to send in on the text line, it's 84126. You can send that text over to us. Before we go, too, I want to make sure that let you know the National Weather Service has issued a severe thunderstorm warning for St. Clair, Illinois, Jefferson, Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri, and Monroe, Illinois, beginning at 9:08 tonight and ending at 10:38. So if you're in those places, once again, be careful. We'll keep you updated on the weather throughout the evening. Keep it tuned here to the Big 550 KTRS. We'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. This is Paul Souls, voice of Spider-Man and Ermy, the Misfit Elf, wanted to be a dentist on Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Coming to you on Geek to Me Radio. Hope you enjoy. Talk with you soon.
Here comes the Spider-Man. Is he strong? Listen, bud. He's got radio.
And we're back. Paul Souls, another person we lost. We just lost, we found out on the way over here that we lost James Michael Taylor, Gunther from Friends, passed away at 59 years old today. Our thoughts and prayers go out to his family. Such a sad loss being just 59. And Larry was just saying it's one of those things that kind of hits a little bit home when you're close to that age.
When you're actually 59.
Yeah, but my goodness, just feel like we're losing so many people lately, and it's kind of, the past couple of years have definitely been rough. But we were talking off air about the prices, how they just jumped, it seems like, on vintage toys and comics in the past, I'd say year, just over last year even. And you were talking, you said you've talked to some people inside.
Yeah, well, actually the last year and a half with COVID and everybody being trapped in their houses and things like that, I think that helped kind of instigate it, prices as well, because so much more demand became for these items. One of the things that I've found with the rest of the dealers around the country talking about is that lower grade, old Silver Age 60s, 70s, 50s books are on a big uprising of selling, to where it used to be people like you and I, Jim, who is like, well, I want that issue of 25 of Avengers. If I have to have it in good so I can read it, I will buy the good condition. You know, not to say necessarily we would turn our nose up against a near mint copy per se if we can afford it, but we want it to read. Well, that's what happened. Now everybody's wanting those, and really, when you get down to it, a lot of it's being said, the prices of new comics are so high now because a new comic book costs you $5.
Yeah.
Well, if you're going to buy a new comic for $5, you're going to buy an old comic that's from the 60s that's in, say, good condition for $10 for the price of two new comics. Now, I hate knocking the new comics, but really the old comic's going to have the better story.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and so that's what's kind of happened with that. So you kind of have your market of, which you always will, the ones who are seeking the high grade, and then they kind of then branch off into the slab market. You know, they get it graded and they have it slabbed and such like that, which is a whole nother, could be a whole nother show. I'll just say I don't necessarily believe in it because I like to read my comic books. Yeah. So I don't know. Actually, I'm in a group and somebody showed their, it was like a Tales of Suspense 84 that they had slabbed. And they said, I just can't wait to read. This is a great book and this is the last part or whatever. And I was like, well, now you can't read it. Why did you slab it?
Right.
It to me, it doesn't make sense. Unless you're going to sell it for resale. You know, that's, to me, that's the only reason why. But that's become a very big market as well. So you've kind of got the ones who don't read them but are collecting them for, I guess you could say, to make money.
Yeah.
And then you got the ones who are just wanting to read the books. And because of the movies of the last decade or so, you got a lot of them who want to read these stories to see the compatible, see how they compare to the movies. It's funny, the person here that you got here in the studio made a comment about Infinity War and Endgame, and in the comics, why Thanos did what he did, and the reason why in the movies, which are two different reasons.
Completely, yeah.
You know, they want to read that stuff. They want to see, compare, and then of course you got the nostalgia factor. You got us older guys and stuff like that who might have not been reading for the last 20 years for whatever reason, and they decide they want to come back and they want to read that stuff again.
Yeah.
So it's really, the market is really, really increased a lot over the last year or so.
And there's nothing you can ever do about speculators per se, but I know a lot of people are going out and buying comics just because with the Marvel series and the Marvel movies, people want the first appearances,
Yes,
especially like
that has become a very big thing.
Dr. Voodoo hasn't even made an appearance, nor is I think anything rumored, but people have jumped on that book specifically, I know.
Yes, well, they're expecting the character to show. I would not be surprised to see the character show up in the next Doctor Strange movie.
And
to tell you the truth.
Yeah, several other characters like that. I know just people are getting on these books and they're skyrocketing because now they're harder to find.
A lot of speculation in it,
Yeah.
especially if you hear about this character is going to be in the movie, then all of a sudden the book has gone up in value.
Yeah.
And the Eternals movie that's getting ready to come out, there's a lot of that happening with some of those characters and stuff.
Because I remember you could, even 5 years ago, you could find the Eternals 1 through 12 in the 50-cent bin.
Yes.
Nobody cared, other than the Jack Kirby art was outstanding.
Exactly.
But now people are buying the books, and they're like, issue number 6 is like $50. I'm like, ah.
That's because it's the first appearance of one of the characters that's going to be in the movie.
Yeah. But it's insane how that's happened across the board. And even on some of the vintage toys, like I know G.I. Joe is always one of my favorite toy lines, and those have skyrocketed.
Yes.
Again, I think people are just at home. They want to go back. They've got extra money, or because they've been able to keep their job, and now they're not traveling to and from work, or they're saving money somehow. So
it's that nostalgia factor.
Yeah.
I had those kids when I was a kid. I want them back.
Yeah.
I want them again.
Yeah.
It's literally that. You get to the people our age, and we start thinking back. That's why He-Man is so big now.
Right.
The age bracket that you're in. I mean, He-Man is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And all that stuff has just gone through the roof.
Yeah, Transformers are up again.
Yes.
They're re-releasing some of those masterpiece things from some of the HasLab studios that are out.
Yeah.
Really impressive stuff they've got out.
And it's insane, the prices. And I think it's a lot of demand, it's demand.
Not as much stuff out there, and obviously.
And even with the comic books, it was interesting. Todd McFarlane was just on something the other day, and he was talking about how the comics in the late around 2005 to 2010 in that range, they had. He said that some of the print runs on some of those comics are only like 16,000, and that's why those comics are starting to rise in value because there's actually had such low print runs, and now. What he says is that, they're printing up to upward of 200,000 copies now. So that's a big difference. And that's why if there was only 15,000, 20,000 copies made of a book, the value will rise.
Right.
It's tough for the 90s time when you were really buying and all that speculative, and you remember
Million
those days
copies.
of the gold cover or this cover or the
X-Men #1 having 5 different covers.
Right. Chloroform cover. The stick-ons, whatever. I just was looking at the Worlds Collide. It was a DC. It had the stick-ons.
Oh, that's right,
all that. Well, they sold tons of copies, and they made so many of them. It's tough for a book to have a lot of value if there's 500,000 copies out there in the world.
And like the Superman 75 Death of Superman, a lot of people probably have 5,000 copies in their home.
There might be some.
That was speculating.
I can't
one
tell you
too.
how many people told me they were going to put their kids through college with their Superman 75s.
Yeah, but there were so many of those printed, though. I mean, then they did I think 4, like a 4th printing and a 5th printing of that one too. So that does not help either. But I mean, who knows? Things could change, and
still a $30 book.
Yeah, it's not bad. It will never put anyone's kid through college.
No. You want to do that, then you get a nice copy of Spider-Man #1 a while back, and then you sit on it for a while.
Yeah,
something like that will do that for you.
Yeah, even like the Wolverine miniseries 1 through 4 that Miller
is
did.
shooting up.
Yeah, that's gone up quite a bit too. So, just out of curiosity, if people are listening right now, maybe they've got comics. Are there any comics that people should maybe go through their collection to look for to see if you've noticed something that's quickly on the rise here lately?
Well, like you said, Eternals. If you happen to have any of those Eternals stuff, the Scarlet Witch. If you watch Division of Scarlet Witch series, all those West Coast Avengers and things like that, which again, like you said, they were in dollar boxes.
Yeah.
Great reads.
Oh yeah, really good. John Byrne was doing some of the work on
but
that.
But they never were worth a whole lot shooting up.
Yeah.
They're miniseries.
Wanda and the Vision of the
Wanda
Scarlet
Vision
Witch
miniseries, which was nothing, and now all of a sudden it's gold.
Yeah.
And continuing to rise. And that's what some of this stuff is, just continuing to go through the roof. First Black Knight, he's going to be showing
48?
up. It's going to be good call. Avengers 48 is going to be showing up in the Eternals. That book's up to $1,600 now.
Oh, man.
And just continuing to rise. And it was 5 years ago, a $30 book.
Yeah. That's crazy to think about.
Those are the, and that's what I'm saying. When you come into my store and you talk to me about that, I will steer you in that direction. If you truly want comics to become stock, so to speak, you have to really know what you're buying. And I'll tell you a quick story. On back in the day of the store, I had a good customer come in. He had $100 in his hand, and he's like, "I'm buying this comic." And you talked about buying comics. It was a Harbinger #1,
mm-hmm.
and I had $100 on it in the case, and that's what he was planning on buying. He said, "I'm going to get this. It's going to be worth a lot of money years from now." And blah blah blah. Well, sitting next to it was a dead mint copy of Amazing Spider-Man #39. Which, those of you who don't know, Amazing Spider-Man 39 is when the Green Goblin unmasked Spider-Man, did something in comics that had never been happened that wasn't an imaginary story or something. The bad guy won. He found out the secret identity. That didn't happen. And it was $100 at the time. And I said, well, if you want my advice, if you're buying something just wanting it to increase in value, I would buy the Spider-Man and not the Harbinger. Well, today, that Harbinger, you're lucky if you're going to get $20, $30 out of it. But that Amazing Spider-Man is upward to $1,000.
Yeah.
So I am definitely one who's not just going to sell you to sell you. I am going to, if you're looking for that kind of investment, they're there, and you could do it in comics. Now, of course, with expensive stocks of some of those books, you're going to have to spend some money, per se.
Especially
but
now.
That book will always continue to rise in value, and that's one of those key things. They will always continue to increase in value.
Right. Yeah, very rarely does a comic that's especially a first appearance dip down and drop.
And certain characters.
Right.
Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, Hulk,
Wolverine.
Captain America, Wolverine. They will, especially the stuff pre-1980, will not drop in value.
Yeah.
It might stay stagnant for a long time, like a stock would, but it will continue to increase eventually over the time. And then, of course, some even more so than others.
I'm surprised the What If comics didn't go up. I know it was
They did.
Did they?
The original series did.
Huh. Because I know I was thinking, like, when they announced the What If series for Disney Plus, I thought those would go up, and I didn't see much of a, like, obviously, I think What If #10, first Jane Foster
Right,
Thor.
there's a couple of those. What if Spider-Man's clone had lived?
Yeah.
What if Jane Foster was Thor? That actually did end up happening years later in the comics. They did go up, but those early What Ifs did go up in value.
Good.
It's there's a later series. You remember there was like
Volume
3
2,
series of
yeah.
What If, but the original series has.
Yeah, good. Okay, well, that makes me feel a little bit better then.
I'd hate to think of somebody would try to sell a perfect copy of What If #1 right now.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's not going to be cheap.
Yeah, probably not.
And off the top of my head, I wouldn't be able to tell you without kind of going to look. And that's one of the things, too. I still believe in Overstreet, the price guide, it's the Bible. All the information is there. But back in our day, we had Wizard to check on hot books.
Right.
Well,
yeah.
that's what you need the internet for. What's hot and what's not, and Overstreet might say, well, this book is $30, but now it's hot online and stuff, and you're going, oh my God, people are buying it at $200. So you got to be keep in tune with that. Biggest thing I'll tell the listeners, though, about listening to hot things online, be careful. Don't believe everything they tell you, because you're going to have guys on there. This is going to be hot. This is going to be great.
Right.
And you have to kind of do a little bit of research with it. Like I said, is there going to be a movie? Is there going to be... And is the character going to be significant to the movie? Who's playing the character, which apparently is very much come into play nowadays when it comes to how big and much those first appearances cost, go up in value, is who's playing the character.
Can't hurt Black Knight to have Kit Harington playing Black Knight.
And that's one of the reasons why that's jumping up so much, is because who's playing it. I hear that all the time when I hear about it. It's more about so-and-so is playing it than this is the character that's in it.
Right.
So it's weird. Industry, it's just happened. What's going on in the industry now with it. But the best thing about it is that just means the comic industry, the medium, is going strong.
Yeah, absolutely.
That, 15 or so years ago, you kind of worried if it was going to fade off thanks to the internet and digital, and like I said, the whole digital thing with Stanley and such. I get people all the time. Well, I can read them on. I got them online. It's like
not the same.
I have to.
Your online copies will never go up in value.
No, I can exactly. I cannot go to sleep unless I read a physical comic book before I go to bed.
Yeah,
and I've been doing that since I've been old enough to read, and I don't think. You can ask my wife. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I
Especially
just can't do it.
After all this time, it's ingrained now. It's a learned habit.
Exactly.
We're talking with Larry Quiggins, the owner of Bugs Comics. If you did hear that right, Bugs Comics is back. If you're one of my friends from North County who's listening right now, we're going to come back. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll remind you where you can find Bugs Comics online and at the physical store as well. We'll talk some more comics throughout the hour. This is Geek to Me Radio. Please stand by.
This is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman. You're listening to Geek to Me Radio.
Welcome back to Geek to Me Radio on the Big 550 KTRS. We just got another one come in from the National Weather Service. There is a tornado warning for St. Clair, Illinois, going until 10:18 p.m. this evening. Again, a tornado warning for St. Clair issued by the National Weather Service going until 10:18. If you're in the St. Clair area, do be careful out there. We'll make sure we tell you about our official movie sponsor, Marcus Theaters. MarcusTheaters.com is the website. A lot of great movies. I almost feel like it's almost like we're almost back to some semblance of normalcy. We were just talking Eternals with Larry. Eternals on the big screen in theaters November the 5th. Tickets are available right now on the Ultra Screen DLX, the Super Screen DLX, and in IMAX. I just saw last week, I saw Last Night in Soho at the press preview. It comes out in theaters October 29th. This is going to be one of my top 5 favorite movies of 2021. That's another great movie to get out and see. Take the kids to see Clifford the Big Red Dog. That's another great film. There's literally something for everybody. I always recommend to start with the website, MarcusTheaters.com. You can get a Sunday passport, 4 movies for $20. You can see those movies between now and December 12th. Dune is huge. If there was ever a time to get out and see the movies, friends, it's now. And you can go to the Marcus Theaters website, find the location closest to you. Make sure you enroll in their magical movie rewards program. You get points for seeing movies, points for buying your popcorn, and then you can use those points to see other movies and buy more popcorn, which is a great deal. It's, for my money, the best movie-going experience around. If you're going to see a movie, you want the best possible sound, the best possible picture, and especially if you're still a little nervous about the COVID situation, Marcus has gone above and beyond in making sure everything is clean, everything is sanitized, even higher than the standards they're supposed to be doing. So it is a good time to get out and see a movie. If you're going to do it right. MarcusTheaters.com for the best movie-going experience in the galaxy. Talking with Larry Quiggins, the owner of Bugs Comics. So excited that Bugs Comics is making a comeback. That makes the 15-year-old in me so happy. We were chatting before, but let's remind people again before we dig in where the store is. You're opening this weekend, the website, and things like that.
Yes, the website is www.bugscomicsandgames.com. The store is at 1664 Bryan Road in O'Fallon, Missouri. Like I said, right there in the corner of Feisey and Bryant, right by the interchange of 364 and a couple minutes from 70 and Bryan Road. Very much you can get there from 40, 364, 70. And I know a lot of people, if they're out this side of the river, they don't really know 364 that well because it wasn't
Still
there 5 years ago.
Right.
It's kind of like those of us who are of age and remember when I-170 showed up and it was just the inner belt.
Right.
It's basically the same thing, and it's just as convenient. I'm telling you, you jump on page here, 364, and just stay at it going across the river, you will get to the store.
Yeah.
It's that simple. It really is. So that's where we're at. This weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 29th, 30th, 31st is the grand opening. Like I said, we'll have Spider-Man there from 4 to 6 on Halloween to meet the kids and get pictures and stuff like that. And we got the Halloween extra Cavanza, whatever they call it in the comic book, so we got the free Halloween comic books to give. And I'm telling you what, I was very impressed with what we got, because usually they're digest size, like the old Archie digest. Well, these are full comic size.
Cool.
It's an exact reprint of the Miles Morales #1 comic.
Nice.
A
huge
Star Wars Adventures comic. So great comics to give away. I was, like I said, I was very impressed when I pulled them out. I was like, oh, full size. And then my brain wasn't even telling me when I ordered them. But the Miles Morales, I was like, I probably would have ordered more of these.
Yeah,
I would have realized because.
What a hot character that is.
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
my gosh.
Yeah. So come visit us. Come see us.
Yeah, and we'll be out there. I know I'm probably going to be out there most of the weekend. I'll probably just, maybe get an RV and stay in the parking lot for the opening weekend because it's going to be so cool that Bugs Comics is back. When you were filling the store, obviously new comics, people want those, but then the back issues. For back issues, I know you personally have a ginormous collection, the likes of which I probably can't even imagine it. Probably like when they're at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark putting the arc away. So did you pull some of this from your personal collection? Did you have overstock? Where was the
I had a little overstock. I mean, I've been doing conventions and shows, and so I had a little bit of selling books type of thing. But my personal collection does not go to the store. I've actually been somebody said that to me, and I was like, well, my collection is not going to be used to make a store work or survive. That's mine, and that's for my kids or whatever, retirement or stuff like that. And like I mentioned before, inventory is a big thing for me, especially with old books.
Yeah.
And I hit the jackpot. It literally was an old customer who you probably met quite a few times back in the day, Mike Brown.
I know the name.
Very
I saw the face.
big guy. Used to own Epic Galleries in Florida.
Yes, okay.
He called me. He had to move. He had to relocate. Blah blah blah, and he couldn't take the stuff with him. Well, he's like me. Well, he's 72, so he's older, but he's like me. He's been collecting all his life.
Wow. Not
just comics. The man is eclectic as anything. If it was Buffy, Star Wars, Conan, he had it. And he didn't have anybody to help him to sell the collection or what to do with, and like I say, I've known him for so long. And he used to, after they closed the store, he would always, up until his health got kind of bad where he couldn't get around that well, he would always come to the shows at Lindenwood, the theater shows.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And when I was on the professional improv troupe, he was there every week, blah, blah, blah. And it was gold mine. I bought all his comics from him. I am in magazines. And then he magic cards, toys, everything. And I'm brokering those for him, basically. But it's huge. I mean, I got enough baseball cards I could open up a baseball card shop for him.
There'll be a little bit of everything. This won't be just a comic book store.
Between that and then another collection fell in our laps that somebody that Tim knew that was more newer stuff. So we just all of a sudden we had the inventory. And like I said, I'm still bagging and boarding books like crazy.
Wow.
We're talking probably a good 6,000 to 8,000 books. And
just back issues, too.
Yes, all back issues.
Wow.
And we're talking affordable reader copies of the good old stuff like Cap's Cuckoo Quartet that you mentioned earlier.
Yes,
stuff like that. All that kind of stuff is there that people are going to be able to get for $5, $10, $20. Reader copies. Which, again, going back to the whole new thing, I'm waiting for the person who says, well, I could spend $5 on this or $5 on this. Well, I'm going to be bad because I'll be saying I'd buy the old book.
Yeah, right.
But like I said, and the toys, you have to go online to look to see what's going on with the magic. I've been letting my son deal with that because he's the magic expert. But if you're into magic, we got it because he had everything.
Wow.
All the way back to the beginning.
Yeah, some of those cards, too, are worth a lot of money. My goodness.
They are. So it was very fortunate that happened because without it, it would have just been a store with new, merchandise and dime a dozen. Yeah.
And with the Diamond distribution, I know they're no longer an exclusive.
No, they're now called a wholesaler, which I'm not really sure. I think we're just kind of getting semantics there between distributor and wholesaler because I'm still getting the same discount and blah, blah, blah. It's very convoluted now, I have to say, with DC Comics coming from Lunar Distribution. And it's all very convoluted. I just finally figured out, really, the second order I did with them now, going like, okay, I think I've got these guys. You got Penguin, who's now technically the distributor for Marvel. I haven't really dealt with them at all yet because I've been a Diamond customer for 30 years. So it's one of those stay with what you know type of thing. But again, you were buying at the time when Marvel broke off and started Heroes World, and they had their own distribution, and 2 years later, everything was back to normal. I kind of suspect that's going to happen again here in another couple of years. I truly don't think that these distribution companies truly understand the comic market. The comic market business just breaks the mold. It's not the same as other businesses. That weekly shipment, because you know as well as I do, weekly comics, they come out. The date is important. It comes out this Wednesday. You don't get the books till the next week, then you lose sales.
Yeah.
You got to have them that day. They got the condition. All that stuff is so important, and that's every week. It's not just, I got my shipment here for a few months, and it's this way. It's every week.
Yeah.
And I think that they're starting to feel the pressure on that, whereas Diamond's used to it.
And I know it's weird, too. It throws me off because now it used to be just comic book day was Wednesdays. Now DC is coming out a day early. That's really weird, too. Or is that going to...
Yes, DC, actually, because Lunar is a little earlier, but Wednesday is new comic book day for me. That's when the new books will be out. I'm not going to try to do pull bags and stuff like that on Tuesday and then Wednesday. And really... I mean, if New Comic Day became Tuesday, I think everybody would come to the comic stores on Tuesday. But I don't see it being strong enough because I don't know if you remember, because it was about 25 or so years ago that Marvel started bringing stuff out on Mondays. And there was a time there where I had new comics on Monday and Wednesday.
I do
vaguely
remember that. Now
and nobody
saying it,
cared about the new ones that were there on Monday. They still came in for the Wednesday for the regular week. So
and get the money ones anyway.
Yeah. I don't expect people are going to be like, why aren't you open on Tuesday to get the DC comics? I don't really see that happening. I think those of us have been doing it for a long time. Wednesday's so ingrained in our head.
Exactly.
I mean, they literally did list last year that variant cover, New Comic Day, Wednesday for some of the books.
That's right. I remember that. Yeah, that's right. So that was the whole comic was just
exactly. So it's been so ingrained in the culture now that that's never going to change. I don't think.
And so, do you have your hours set, or is it going to be kind of fluid? We'll see how it goes. So you kind of gauge audience, or not audience, but
Wednesdays I'll be open 11 to 7. Probably Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday I'll be the 11 to 7 hours, and then 12 to 6. Right now I'm debating on if I'll be open Mondays or not. I may or may not be. Depends on how much the online, because I kind of broke it down to where if I have to do shipments and ship stuff out and take care of eBay stuff and whatever like that, that would be the Monday.
Okay, makes
now,
sense.
If I learned that I can have the store open and do it at both at the same time, then the store might be open, because typically Mondays aren't the most busiest days anyway.
So Tuesdays will be closed then?
Tuesday is going to be down, because that'll be the day that I'll be doing books.
Yeah,
and getting the books ready which is better than it was back then, because back then I would get the stuff Wednesday morning early and have to
quickly
any kind of delay or anything like that, throws everything wrench into the works. So
right, absolutely. And again, if you're listening on the Big 550 KTRS, we're talking with Larry Quiggins, the owner of Bugs Comics, making its triumphant return, like Jean Grey coming out of the lake. The Phoenix is rising. We're going to take our last commercial break. We're going to come right back and chat more with Larry. We're talking comic books. Again, if you have a question, if you'd like to send in a question on the text line, 84126, put your name in, because I'll see the numbers pop up. But if you just say, hi, this is Bob from O'Fallon, or this is Jenny from Kirkwood, and put your question so I can make sure I address the person who's putting it out. And we'll come right back with more after this. Stand by.
Hi, this is Nichelle Nichols, and you're listening to Geek to Me Radio.
We are back. City of St. Charles, the Greater St. Charles Convention and Visitors Bureau, our premier sponsor. When I first launched this radio show in 2016, they were the first people I went to. I've got a really good relationship with them, and they said, yes, we're down. They've been with me the entire time that we've been on the air, over 5 years now. But it is a great time. We just spent the afternoon down in St. Charles for their Legends and Lanterns Festival, and it's one of the most fun things you can imagine. People were out in the streets during the pumpkin glow. The street was mostly closed down, just families out there having a good time. And the director of the festival pointed out to me, he said, look around. No one is on their phone. No one has their phone up. Everyone is interacting with the characters like Abigail Williams and Guy Fawkes and Baron Samedi and Mrs. Havisham from Great Expectations. All these people, these kids are growing up and talking to them, engaging, and they're having fun. It's just a great atmosphere. The free hay rides. There's one last thing. If you did not get to experience Legends and Lanterns this fall, the Bayou Bash is coming up Friday night of this week. If you mark that for your calendars, tickets are still available on the website. Go to discoverstcharles.com. It's a New Orleans-style ball. It's hosted by Baron Samedi and Marie Laveau, the voodoo queen of New Orleans. It's you can come in costume. There'll be a costume contest. There'll be adult libations. This is a 21-and-up party, so this one's not for the kids, and a good time will be had by all. Again, you can get your tickets at the website, discoverstcharles.com, and there's tabs on the website. They just redid it. It's beautiful. You can do the events tab to find out what's going on. There's always something happening. If you're a foodie, there's restaurants up and down North and South Main. If you're wanting to find something unique as a gift idea, all the shops they have. This is an entire community made up of small businesses, which, as Larry will tell you, is so important, especially now in our post-COVID world here. These small businesses are what's keeping a lot of these places going, and your business is helping them do that. Go to the website again, discoverstcharles.com. Plan your trip. If you're listening to this and you're streaming, you're not from the area, come visit. There are lots of places to stay, hotels with world-class accommodations, charming bed and breakfasts. And again, you can find those places on the website as well under places to stay, conveniently enough. So check out the website again, discoverstcharles.com. Very proud to have them as our premier sponsor, St. Charles, for an historically good time. Want to make sure we tell you about our website as well, geektomeradio.com. Go on in there and play around. We just had Christopher Cantwell, the current writer of Iron Man, on the show last week, talking about bringing new life to that character. We've got some great interviews coming up for you. You just heard Nichelle Nichols bringing us back from break, and I talked to Brian Volkweis. That interview is going to drop next week for our online show, talking about Star Trek and their 55th anniversary and the documentary series they have coming out on Netflix soon. So make sure you check that out as well, geektomeradio.com. We appreciate your support, and we thank you for listening tonight on the Big 550 KTRS. As we wrap up our conversation with Larry Quiggins, the owner of Bugs Comics, it's so cool, man. That it makes me giddy that you're reopening the store. It's so much fun.
I'm glad that I'm actually sitting here talking to you, because it's so fun to sit there and talk to the kid, 15, 16-year-old kid who came into the store. Because your number in the Avengers Club was 19, so you were so early as one of the members, because when it's all said and done, there was over 200 that was in the club, when mention the club again, the Avengers Club is for those who want to have pull lists or pre-order using previews or going online and doing their pre-ordering. But you don't have to pre-order. If you just want to give a pull list and say, I want Spider-Man, Captain America, yada, 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 which is, I believe, what you did back in the day, that's perfectly fine. We just pull the bags. And then you get a discount, and it kind of depends on what you spend, and how much your discount is and things like that. It could be up to 30%, depending if you're crazy like me and you spend tons of money. I think it's interesting that I just want to go back. You mentioned the guy who writes Iron Man. Is that to where we can hear that? Because I didn't get to hear that last week. Yeah, Christopher Cantwell.
All the website, if you go to geektomeradio.com, it'll have the little tabs. My executive producer, Joey V, archives and pulls the commercials out and puts them up online. But yeah, he had a great talk about
that. Was actually one of the titles I was going to bring up, because I was expecting you to say, what are you reading, Larry, or something like that. And I mentioned Robin earlier as probably my favorite book right now coming out, ironically enough, being DC. But Iron Man is one of my favorite titles since he started writing it, the series. So very interesting. Of course, the Alex Ross covers.
Oh, those are gorgeous.
You can never go wrong with Alex Ross covers. But the story's been really good. It's been interesting. The Korvac take and
Patsy.
Hellcat, seeing Patsy in there. So kudos to that book, too. just for those who are listening, and if you haven't been reading the new Iron Man series, it's only on issue 11 or 12 or something like that.
I think 13 just came out.
Yeah, so it's real early. If you one of those people want to jump in the number 1 to have the whole run and stuff like that, it's a good series to jump into.
Yeah, and if you've listened to the show before, you know I'm very big on telling you this is a book you should be reading because I, as a fan, like it. And I told people with Immortal Hulk out of the gate, jump on the Immortal Hulk. And now those back issues have kind of gone up, and people are trying to go back and get them. 13 issues of Iron Man. People go out to Larry's store and get it. It's a great run.
If you're older readers, you'll appreciate what he's doing with Korvac.
Yeah. And just bringing the team in, we have Frogman and Scarlet Spider and Gargoyle. It's brilliant.
The fact that Frogman and Gargoyle is around and being done intelligently and not just be silly characters is wonderful.
Yeah, and seeing Misty Knight join the team, too, has been a lot of fun. So it's kind of fun to see the Space Avengers, as I think Christopher referred to them as the Space Avengers.
Interesting. I kind of like that. Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
But that is one of the good books that's coming out right now that people should be looking at.
I agree. And as we're wrapping things up, once again, I don't want to beat people over the head with it, but radio audiences, people change out every so often. Larry Quiggins of Bugs Comics is opening this coming weekend. So the 29th, 30th, and 31st is your grand opening.
Yes.
And the website, again, is bugscomicsandgames.com.
Yes.
And it's A-N-D, obviously, spelled out.
Yes.
Give the address again, the physical address for people who want to come out and see you.
It's at 1664 Bryan Road in O'Fallon, Missouri, right there in the corner of Fisey and Bryan Road. Like I said, right next to the interchange of 364 and 2 or 3 minutes from 70 in Bryan Road. So very nicely centrally located. You're going to love my new sign whenever it gets finally put up, but it's going to actually have the Blue Hornet bug character on the sign for the first time.
Still on the back of the card, I think.
Yes, that makes me so excited. Online, you can do all the pre-ordering. I actually had a customer, a new customer, do the online and said they really love it. He said all he has to do is put in the word Wolverine and it'll pop up anything I can order for him that has to do with Wolverine.
Perfect.
Not just the Wolverine comic. So check us out online if you're one of those type people, but obviously the on-site store, as Jim would be able to tell you, is if you want to go talk comics, come there New Comic Day. Come there and we'll have the guys standing around and we'll all be talking about what we don't like, what we do like.
And Larry's probably one of the most knowledgeable people I know about comics. If you do have a question, or if you want to sell your collection, come see him. Larry, thanks for being on air. I appreciate your being here tonight.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate being here, too.
Anytime. Thank you, St. Louis. Good night.
Hey, kids. Are your parents about to buy you a shiny new toy from Amazon?
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Well, don't be selfish. Share some of that money with us. Before going on Amazon, make sure to type in bit.ly/geek2me in the web browser. It will look just like Amazon.com, except it'll say referral Geek to Me Radio up top. And then when you check out, a tiny percentage will go to support the show without costing you 1 cent more. So before your parents get you that gizmo, gadget, or widget, make sure they type in bit.ly/geek2me in the web browser.
bit.ly/geek2me. bit.ly/geek2me.